we're going to cover closing off the payroll for the end of the financial year, how to print your PAYG payment summaries, how to print your PAYGW annual report, and creating the EMP-DUPE file, which is used for electronic submission to the ATO. Okay, so now we can switch over to using ACR, and we can actually go through the process. So when you're logged into ACR, the whole process takes place from the payroll menu. The following steps are to be undertaken sometime after completing your final June dated pay run, but before you do your 1st July dated pay run. Once you've done your last June pay, do not close the June month as you would any other month. Doing this process includes the process for closing off June. So what we can do then is go through the process. The first step we're going to do is to check that the PAYG payment summary and your report file details are complete and correct. So to access these, we can go into payroll configuration, and have a look at the file details button. Now these details here will have your company details, contact details and addresses. This information is used for the electronic files and reports for the ATO, so it's just a case of making sure that these are correct before progressing any further. So once you're happy they're correct, we can click on OK to that. The next step is to ensure that the extra super accrued reflects correctly for each of your employees and reflects the correct amount of salary sacrifice super paid within the current year. That can be found under maintenance, employee maintenance. If you bring up an employee, under the entitlements button, sorry about that. It appears that for some reason you didn't all see that. So the payroll configuration I was talking about is found under Configurations Payroll, the File Details button, and the payer details are available under here. This is where you've got your contact name and details and your addresses as well as your ABN details. The super amount is available under the employee maintenance. Bring up an employee under the entitlements tab or button. You will see the extra super accrued amount. Now, if this figure is not correct, you can manually adjust this figure by clicking in the field and retyping in the figure that you need it to be. There are two ways you can check this. One, you can actually go through and check each of your employees individually. Alternatively, you can run the superannuation report, and it does show on the superannuation report. So if we quickly do that, if we run the superannuation report, we run the superannuation report for the current financial year, and generate, we'll be able to bring this up onto screen. And it will show us the extra super accrued amount on the right hand column. So this is just opening up for us. Okay, so what we can see here is the extra amount. This column here is where you'll be able to see the extra super accrued amount. So if you have a look, you have a lot of employees that have extra super, that might be the best way to do it. Sorry about that. I don't quite know what's happened there. I think we've had a bit of a internet glitch. Okay, so the extra super accrued amount can be found on the superannuation report, can also be found directly in employee maintenance. Again, in the employee maintenance under the entitlements tab. And this is where you can actually correct the amount if you discover that the amount is incorrect. The next step to go through is to ensure that the correct FBT amount has been entered for each employee, if there is an FBT amount that needs to be reported for them. So to find the FBT amount, we can actually just go into the PAYG summary button, and we manually enter in the FBT amount here for the employee. If that amount left blank, nothing will show on the summaries, but if an amount is required, it needs to be keyed in here. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to go through and print the PAYGW preview annual report. This is where we're going to be able to actually have a first look at the report that we're going to be generating. We need to ensure that the figures on this report are correct before continuing. Once you've selected continue, you will not be able to alter the figures on the report, and the system will effectively archive these figures ready for use for the actual annual report. Running this report will show the PAYGW report details screen again to confirm they are correct. Selecting OK to this report will then issue, it'll issue a message if you've got any issues with any of your employees. So what we'll do, we'll tell it to print the report. As I said, it shows the report detail, so we're going to click OK to that, and it'll now go through and bring up. Okay, so what this has done now, because we have been set up to lodge electronically, it's actually created the EMP DUP preview file. It's done this because it's gone through, it's found no issues with our employees, and it's come up to this. Now this file is the file that can be used with the ATO's ECI software. The preview version is used to do your verification and to validate it to make sure that it's all correct and that there's no issues with your data. So we're going to click on OK. And we're going to ask it to print it to screen. So this will actually show us an actual copy of the report. Okay, we're just getting the report generated. Okay, can I just, while this report's generating for us, can I ask if there's any questions so far that anybody has? If you do have a question, can I just ask that you select the raise hand icon, and we will address any questions that you may have up to this point. Okay, doesn't appear like we have any questions coming through just yet. So at this point I think we can take it that it appears to be going okay. So what I'll show you here, this is a copy of the report, what it actually looks like when it prints out. Now the electronic file obviously contains a version of this, but in the format that the ATO require. This is what the actual report looks like when it prints out. As you can see here, it does have a column where the FBT will show. It does also have a column where the extra super amount will show, which is why it's important to check those figures earlier at the beginning, and making sure that they're correct, because they do report here. So we can close that report down now because we're okay with that. So the next step we're going to go through then is we're actually going to close off the June payroll month end. And we do this in the usual fashion by printing the PAYG withholding report. So what we'll do now, we will print our PAYG withholding report. And you'll notice that this has actually brought up a message here. And it actually is telling us that we need to confirm the details in the preview report, which is the one we've just seen, and that we need to validate the PAYGW payment summary report file. That's the EMP DUP preview file. Now, if you actually need any assistance with using the ECI software or with doing the validation process, you will actually need to contact the ATO to get assistance with that, because it's actually an ATO package. ACR themselves, we create the file that works with them, but the ATO will be able to assist you with actually using the ECI software. So once you're happy the report's got the correct details, and once you're happy that the file, if you're using electronic lodgement, has been lodged with the ATO, you can click on continue. And the next one is just a reminder, basically just double checking that you have actually done that. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to click on OK, because this will actually now roll us from June and do the normal PAYG withholding. And as normal, clicking no will actually roll us into the next month. Okay, so now we're effectively in the July period. We need to now continue on with it. So it's going to sound a little strange, but we're going to actually print the preview report again, just to make sure that everything prints correctly and that there are no issues with it. So it'll bring up the summary again. We'll click on OK. It'll do now. Just to let you know, the EMP DUP file, both the preview and the regular file will actually be get saved to your docs directory. So here you can see that the preview file that we've created has been saved to the docs directory. Once we get to the point of creating the proper file, it will also be saved there as well. So we can click on OK to that. We'll print the report to screen. And again, it'll look like the previous report due to it being the same information. It's just a good idea to make sure that everything is still exactly the same as it was before, that you're happy with it, because this is sort of getting to the point of no return, that the next step we're going to do is actually start printing the payment summaries. So just making sure everything is correct here. So once we're happy with that, the next step, as I said, is actually to print our PAYG payment summaries. So we're going to go down and print them. Now, we recommend printing all of them the first time. That'll make sure that everything is printed correctly. This is an area we do get quite a few questions at around this time of year about printing the files and saving them for referencing later. If you're going to a number of different places handle this differently. Some will print all of them the first time. They'll then go back and print each one individually and save each file as a different file name. Other sites will print all of them and then scan them into a single document that they can then search through during the year if they need to reprint them. As I said, there's a number of ways to handle it, and each site seems to find a way that best suits them. So what we're going to do is we're going to print all of them here, and we'll just ask it to print to screen. This way I can just show you a sample of what the payment summaries look like. So this is just a sample detail. We've got the the company details at the top, employee details. As you'll notice here, they're each opening as an individual file. We have in the past encountered a little bit of a thing with some PDF viewers for sites that have more than 50 employees. Some PDF viewers don't like opening more than 50 tabs at a time, which is excuse me, which is another reason why some sites will print all of them out to paper and then scan them into a single document. Okay. So, once they're all printed, we have all the employee details. We can then see down here that we have the period of the employment, the tax file number, the tax withheld, the gross payments, any reportable super contributions, the reportable fringe benefits, the allowances, whether there's been any additional information or any additional lump sum payments that fall under either of these categories. And then the payer details, the payer ABN, the branch number, and the box to sign them. As we can sort of see here, each individual will have different amounts. In this case, we've got one who is within the tax-free threshold, so there's very little information in there. I'll try and locate for us one of the ones with a little bit more information. Just want to show you a couple of examples of what these look like, so that you've got a bit of an idea of what they would look like when you're coming through. So here's another one that does have some reportable employer super contributions on it. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward with what it is. So we'll just close that down. Once you've done the payment summaries and you're happy with that, the next step we've got is to print the PAYGW actual annual report. So this time when we do it, we're going to change over to doing the actual report. This is going to be the step that that actually creates the EMP-DUPE file for us in the docs directory, which is the one that we actually use to generate to send to the ATO. Now, just had a question here about the payment summaries and whether they're what we just saw there, where they printed is ready for them to give to the employees. Those payment summaries that we just saw, yes, they once they've been signed by the responsible person at the site, are ready to give to the employee, like to hand out to the employees. So they are complete as long as you've got all of the FBT and the super information in correctly, and you've done your final June pay. That payment summary that we just ran there would be ready to sign and hand straight out to your employees. So now we're going to print the actual report. So if we print it, again it brings up the information just to confirm that you can see it and that it's all fine. So now we'll notice here, this time it's telling us that it's created the EMP dupe file. So if we have another look in our docs directory, we'll notice here now that it's actually created it. Excuse me. If your site is a site that has done the payroll for a number of years, or that you've done electronic lodgement previously, these EMP dupe files will write over the previous ones from previous years. So the ATO don't change the name of the file each year. They will just put it. It'll just write over the same file. If you're worried, you can check the date modified to check that you've got the correct ones. So once we've done the EMP dupe file and that we're ready to go, we click on OK. will now actually print a copy of the actual report. Now while that's just printing, I've had a quick question about whether the FBT amount can be entered before the last pay in June, or whether it needs to be entered after. The FBT amount can be entered at any point during the year. I think the FBT year finishes end of March, so any time between end of March and completing the end of year process, you can enter that FBT amount into the system. So what we'll see here is that this is the PAYG annual report. Looks exactly the same as the previous ones. This is a copy of the report that you will actually be sending to the ATO though. So this is the actual report now completed. So the final step in the whole process is now to actually do the year-end reset. So we can actually go now and do the year-end reset roll. This is the physical process that is going to actually move us into, is going to close off the June or the 2013 financial year, open the 2014, ready for us to enter the 1st July dated pay. So we're going to go through and activate, double checks that we're ready to go, and we're going to. So as you'll see here, it just goes through a number of different steps to actually fix up what's happening. Now this process will take a different amount of time depending on the amount of employees you have and a number of other factors. And this afternoon it seems to be one of those situations of watching paint dry is always going to make it seem like it's a little bit longer. Okay, I've had a question come through. My PAYG annual report preview does not have a super extra column, yet we do have one staff member who does salary sacrifice, where I thought this figure would be. Should the preview report have the super extra column? I might actually take that one up with the person directly after this webinar. The reason being is that there is a number of different ways that you can set up the doing additional super in our system. We have got notes on doing additional super contributions, and there are 3 primary methods that we have listed in there, only one of which would show up in the super extra amount column. So I might talk with that person and have a talk with her, because it may be a case of that the person who they believe has that super may be set up in one of the methods that that doesn't show. So I'll talk to her about that. I'll talk to that person separately. Okay, so now we've got it through here that it's all finished and completed, so we can complete that now, and we're now ready to process our 1st July dated payroll. Cool, so effectively now we would be ready to go through and process the first payroll that was dated for July. So this process, as I said, just needs to be take place any time between the 2 dates. So what I'm just going to do, so just to cover off here, this process needs to be completed after the last June dated pay and before the 1st July dated pay. So it's a case of if you have, depending on how you do your payroll, if you do weekly pay and you paid on Monday was your last June pay, and your 1st July pay is going to be next Monday, you could do this process any time between those 2 dates, and you would be right, because it's just a case of once you've done your last June one and before you do your 1st July one. As we said, the EMP dupe preview and the EMP dupe files are saved to your docs directory. Just to let you know, the 2014 financial year tax rates and HEX rates and such are all automatically loaded by ACR, so there's no additional processes involved in doing that side of it. Although we do have a reminder in here that the superannuation rate does increase from 9% to 9.25% for your first July dated pay, so just a recommendation for people to just make sure that that gets looked after, and that you look into that before your first July dated pay. Now, just to also let people know, there's a copy of the written instructions on how to do this on our ACR Connect website, which we'll send out a link to everybody who attended. We'll send a link to the written instructions for these, which will shortly have a link to a copy of this webinar that we've actually hosted today. So I just want to firstly say thank you to everyone for attending the closing payroll for the end of the financial year webinar.